At the end of this video, you'll know how to properly perform a Fox 36 Performance lower leg surface. I strongly recommend watching it in its entirety to fully understand each individual step involved. The repair in this video is done by a qualified bicycle surface technician. It speaks for itself that if you have any doubt whether or not you can properly perform the repair shown here, you should not attempt it. If you like the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And we also have a Facebook group for people who want to learn more about being able to service mountain bikes. And you're welcome to join that group with the help of the link in the description below. Before we open up the fork, it's incredibly important to clean it. If you receive a fork for a lower leg surface, it's never going to be 100% clean. Especially the steerer tube can hold a lot of dirt and sand. Spray the fork copiously with bike cleaner. We use Maca bike cleaner, but feel free to use any cleaner solution you prefer. And by using a pressurized spray bottle, it's easy to get the stuff into every nook and cranny. After you've used the bike cleaner and let it sit for a minute or two, rinse it off. And any method will do, but a mobile outdoor cleaner will prove to be particularly helpful and efficient. Make sure to dry the fork properly before moving on to the next step. It's recommended that for the next steps you use a bench mount workstand to be able to hold the fork while doing the Fox 36 Performance lower leg surface. The rebound adjuster is protected by a cap. Before you can remove the rebound adjuster, you'll need to remove this rebound adjuster cap. After the cap is removed, you can remove the rebound adjuster itself by loosening the set screw using the 2mm hex key. Using a 10mm socket to remove the bottom nut located on the air spring side, and this is the side located on the left from the perspective of the rider. Use a 15mm socket to remove the bottom nut located on the damper side. This is the side located on the right from the perspective of the rider. Both ends of the fork legs will have crush washers, and make sure you do not lose these if you are going to reuse them. There can be quite some stiction between the bottom of the damper and air spring and the lower legs, so you need to knock these out with a hammer. We use specific damper side and spring side removal tools to prevent the threads from damaging. Since these tools are really expensive, you can also use the sockets you've used to remove the bottom nuts. With a gap between the fork leg and the removal tool or bottom nut of about 5mm, give it a solid tap with a mallet, and this should be enough to break it loose. With the lower legs loosened, you can rotate the fork to a standing position and remove the damper and air spring. Be sure you have your oil drain pan ready, because oil will be coming out of the fork legs. Because only the fork brace keeps the loose lower leg in place, it's a good practice to strengthen it using a boost through axle. We are going to replace the foam rings, seals and sag ring. To do so, we need to remove the old ones first. Using a long tire lifter, we can pop the seals and foam rings out. Pre-soak the foam rings, which we are going to install later. Use a plastic container with Fox 20 weight gold suspension fluid. Before we install the new foam rings, you can clean the innards of the lower legs. Since this is a routine maintenance of a very well kept fork, we only needed to clean the upper part. With the legs cleaned, place the new foam rings into the lower legs using a pick to get them out of the plastic container. Since the foam rings were lubricated when moving into place, we do not need any extra lubrication for these seals, since the foam rings have left enough on the insides of the lower leg. And using a Fox 36 seal driver tool, we can then proceed to hammer the seals into place. Before reinstalling the damper and air spring, put some silicone grease on the inside of the seal to aid in this process. We use Renault SL 410M silicone grease for this purpose. Do not forget to add the sag O-ring to the shaft before installing. It's now time to very carefully insert the damper and air spring into the lower legs. Be careful not to damage the smooth walls of the lower legs during this process, and also make sure that the damper and air spring go in correctly, with the air spring sitting on the left and the damper on the right. The damper is the side with the rebound adjuster. Next up is the oil insertion into the lower legs. To be able to do this, it's a best practice to rotate the fork so the legs are pointing upwards for gravity to do its job when you put in the oil. Be sure to move both damper and air spring out a little again so they don't stick out of the lower legs and the oil actually has some room to go into. Put 40 millimeters of Fox PTFE infused 5-weight suspension fluid into the damper on the right using a syringe. Then proceed to add 10 millimeters of Fox 20-weight gold suspension fluid into the air spring side. After you've pushed both rods out of the bottom of the lower legs, it's time to put new crush washers on them if you do not plan to reuse these. You'll need a 13 millimeter for the damper and 8 millimeter for the air spring. These crush washers are going onto the bottom nuts. We use a torque wrench set at 7.4 Newton meters to tighten both foot nuts. Use a 2 millimeter hex tool to put the rebound adjuster knob back into place, after which you can put the rebound adjuster cap back into place as well. A final cleanup with a bit of brake cleaner fluid, your Fox 36 Performance lower leg surface is done. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and don't forget to consider joining the Facebook group, and I hope I can welcome you again for the next video as well. Bye for now.